ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our other episode for Elevated. Wheels of Change, Stories of Resilience. I'm your host, Susan, and tonight we bring you an extraordinary story of generosity, perseverance, and strength. Our guest today is a man who has changed his struggle into a mission to change lives. Mr. Mugwanya Francis, you're welcome to Elevated.
Well, thank you very much.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Been well.
You've been well.
Yes.
How is everything? How is work?
It's all going well. It's busy. It keeps us busy.
Happy 2025.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you. Now,
Yes.
kindly tell our viewers about who you are. You know as Mr. Mugwanya Francis, but
Yes.
someone out there would want to know, who is Mr. Mugwanya Francis?
Right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Francis Mugwanya. Most people know me as Uncle Francis. I serve at Gaba Community Church. I am one of the elders there. I am married with 3 children. My wife is Adrian. Our firstborn is Hannah. Our second one is Elijah. And our third one is Katarina.
Katarina.
Yes. And we all together lead a ministry called the Father's Heart Mobility Ministry. In this ministry, we bring wheelchairs and crutches and walkers for people who cannot afford them. So we bring them into the country and we give them to the people free of charge. I also work with the National Council for People with Disabilities. In my free time, I volunteer there. The Minister of Disability asked me to support the team there and represent all non-government organizations that work with people with disabilities. So briefly, that's about what I do.
Wow, that's interesting. You talked about Father's Heart,
Yes.
and this is an initiative that you've started.
Yes.
What inspired you, or who inspired you to start this initiative?
Right. The ministry officially started in 2012. But between year 2000 and 2012, I used to buy 1 wheelchair at a time.
Okay.
And I realized that there were so many people I could not just afford to do 1 wheelchair. How did that start? It started with my struggles growing up. Growing up as a child with a disability was really hard. I had polio when I was 3 years old, and that affected both of my legs, so I can't really walk on them. And so crawling on my hands and knees meant that I went everywhere dragging myself in the dust or the mud, and it was really hard to get a wheelchair. My dad tried to get a wheelchair. He paid a workshop here in Kampala. We lived in Luwero. He paid here in Kampala. We checked on the wheelchair 3 times. He would bring me to town. When we got into the taxi park, he would put me on his back and carry me from the taxi park to Molago Hospital, where we expected the wheelchair. We did that 3 times. He would bring me up, we'd go to the taxi park and go home. And the 3rd time we gave up because the wheelchair was not ready. And one well-wisher there told us, your wheelchair was ready, but someone who had more money had taken the wheelchair and now they are making a new one for you guys. So we gave up. My dad came home, broke the news, bought a big bicycle, and so we used to use the big bicycle to go to school. My older brother learned how to ride the bicycle through the frame, and I would sit on the carrier on the back, and he would ride me to school. Now, because he was just learning how to ride the bicycle, we fell so many times. And every time we would fall down, the neighbors would help pick me up, but then they never wanted me to go to school. And they said, you have a disability, you're bothering your brother to go to school, you're going to be useless, why even bother going to school? Stop going to school. We never listened, my parents never listened, we kept going to school. They got to a time where they said, we'll stop picking you up, figure out how to, figure out how to get back on the bicycle and you go to school if you're still interested, because you're bothering your brother for nothing. So I learned to get back on the bicycle and we would go to school. When we got to school, my older brother had to bring the bicycle back home and then leave it there, and he would walk to his school. Our parents were afraid the bicycle would get stolen from us. So then at lunchtime, he would leave his school, pick the bicycle, come to my school, pick me up, bring me home. He had afternoon classes. He would walk back to his school. And in the evening, when he was done around 4, he would walk home, pick the bicycle, go and fetch water for the family. And when he dropped me off at school, I used to also crawl on my hands and knees to go to the latrines. Of course, they were dirty, to go to the kitchen to get the porridge, and of course, to get around in the school. So I struggled growing up without a wheelchair. I was in school for 4 years, for P1, P2, P3, and P4 without a wheelchair. My dad eventually got to meet this social worker. Her name was Susan. She used to work with an organization just like you. So she worked with an organization called the Uganda Society for Disabled Children, USDC. So Auntie Susan picked interest in me, and she decided she was going to put me on the list for those who are going to get wheelchairs.
Wow.
So they took me for measurements, and a few months later, I got the wheelchair. I got it for free. And since I got that wheelchair, at the very end of my P4, I told God, when I grow up, because of my suffering, I want to help someone who does not have a wheelchair.
Wow.
And so that is the story behind Father's Heart. So when I got my wheelchair, I was able to go to school independently. Of course, it was basically the only toy we had at school. So my friends pushed me around and we would play.
They would play it.
Of course, and we would drive the wheelchair on one wheel or two wheels, but they were helping me in the meantime to ride me or push me back and forth from home to school. And also, I was able to go to church more freely without waiting for someone to put me on the back of a bicycle. And a year later, that was when I was in P5, I gave my life to Jesus. And so, because I was mobile in the wheelchair and gave my life to Jesus, I began to learn about what the Bible said about me. And, you know, scriptures like, you're created in the image of God. That's Genesis 1:26 and 27. God tells Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1:5 that before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. And I set you apart to be a prophet to the nations. So those scriptures were speaking to me because remember, I was told I was useless.
Yes.
I was not going to end up doing anything because I had a disability. And now scripture is saying you're made in the image of God. God is saying, you know, he said to Jeremiah, and I own that he told Jeremiah. If God told Jeremiah he knew him before he was in his mother's womb, he definitely knows me, and he knew me before I was in my mother's womb. He also, scripture continues to say that those who believed in him, he gave the right to become children of God. I was a child of God.
This was in P5.
That was in P5, and the years that came afterwards, because I got someone who took me through the Bible little by little. And so those scriptures built me up. And so today, when I look at the Father's Heart Mobility Ministry, it's a ministry that brings basically the heart of God to people with disabilities alongside the wheelchairs.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful background. I want to take you back. You said you got polio at the age of 3 years old. Meaning you've tested the ground with your feet. You played as a child with your feet.
Yes.
How was it? What was, like, take us through the first day you noticed that I actually can't move on my feet anymore.
Mm.
Do you remember that day?
I vaguely remember that I was able to walk. Most
Yes.
of it, I'm just told, I think because I was young.
Mm.
So most of the life that I remember starts when I stopped walking.
Yes.
So then, getting on my knees to move around. I used to move with my hands and knees on the ground. And you used not to shake my hands because they were dusty, they were dirty, and they had calluses in them. And so they were as rough as someone walking barefooted on the ground. And so those used to be my hands and those used to be my knees. And of course, I couldn't play very well with my friends because they were either too fast or they went to the neighborhood to play, and that was too long for me to crawl and get there. So it was difficult memories there.
And being disabled, there is a lot of isolation as a child.
Yes.
How did you deal with that? Because this is, first of all, the neighbors themselves.
Yes.
The kind of feedback they would give you to even suggest you coming out of school. Now at school, how did you used to handle this isolation?
I used to report a lot of the stories to my mom because she was always at home. My dad worked outside of home every day, so he was a taxi driver. And so he would leave home every morning. So I reported everything as I would hear from the neighbors, from school, from the children, and reported back to my mom. The children said this about me. The children said this about me. And so my mom would encourage me. Well, they said you don't walk and you're not going to do anything, but they don't know what your life has for you. Just continue going to school and God will show us what you will do. So she found some answers for me to keep going. Some of the things they said my mom didn't have answers for. She just said, you know what, for us, we love you and we accept you and you're one of us. Just keep going. We will see what God does.
Well, you must have had a very strong mother and very supportive. Are there times when she would... Is there any day? Do you remember any day when she confronted someone about your child, about her child? You stop doing this.
Yeah, I don't remember her doing that. She is a softly spoken person. So she would do things like that behind my back without me seeing. And so she wouldn't confront anyone. And for most of the people who said things about me, they would say them as they passed or walked by. So by the time I would report to her, the person would have gone by the house. And then other times it was at school. Of course, she wasn't there, so she couldn't quite confront everybody. But I know that for some that we noticed, she would ask, who was that who said A, B, C, D? And I would tell her. And then I think that eventually she would go and talk to them.
And you as you, because, sometimes people say mean things. When people would say these mean things to you or make very hard statements, how did you used to take it and how did you handle it? The times when you can't talk to mommy or daddy.
That's right.
How did you handle that?
I was definitely hurt by them. And of course, as a child, you know that everything an adult says is true. And so that's what you assume. So I had thought that what they said defined life for me. And that meant that is whatever they said is what will happen. So I had begun to accept what people said about me because they are the adults. They know what they're talking about. They've lived longer, and therefore whatever they are saying will definitely come to pass. So it made me sad that I was going to be a useless person. I was not going to be able to go to school. I wasn't going to be able to work. And some of them, the neighbors had told me, even if they give you a job, they won't pay you. You know, they cheat people who are able to walk. How will you chase after them to give you the money if your legs don't work? So all of those things made me sad. There was nothing really to live for. And so I wasn't happy because my life was just doomed. There was not going to be any hope in life.
But when you got this wheelchair, did you feel like, did you regain hope for a better tomorrow? How did that change your life?
That's when it all started.
Okay.
The freedom and independence that comes with getting a wheelchair. You remember before, I had to wait for my brother,
yes,
or I had to wait for my friends to either carry me on the back or carry me on the bicycle. Now I don't have to wait for them. I can take myself to school. I can take myself to go play. So the freedom that gave me as a child, you always want to be running around.
Yes.
That wasn't me before the wheelchair. Now, after the wheelchair, I regained my childhood again.
Wow.
I could, run basically
play
with the wheelchair, play. And so that was the beginning. But I was always sad because, people had told me the future still.
It would come back.
Well, yeah, it would keep coming back. The future was not hopeful.
Clear.
It wasn't clear. I had a disability, and therefore it was going to be hard even when I had a wheelchair. But I would say giving my life to Jesus when I was in P5, that was the beginning of the whole change to the life that has hope. So the wheelchair was the beginning. Jesus opened up more opportunities for me because that redefined life for me. The Bible saying you're created in the image of God, you are a child of God, God knew you before you were born, and He has purpose for your life. That turned things around.
You talked about playing as a child in your wheelchair.
Yes.
What was your favorite game?
Soccer, football.
You used to play football?
Yes.
In your wheelchair?
I would get out. I was the goalkeeper of each class that I went to after I got the wheelchair. So what I used to do is put my wheelchair on the side.
Okay.
We had 2 sticks that would make the goal. And so I would sit in the middle. So all the balls that would come down, I would definitely get them.
How?
I would dive
because
and
they
get
have
the balls.
to,
Yeah, I could do it. And I was
you
fast
could
at
jump.
it. Exactly. And then the ones that were coming up,
Yes.
as long as I raised my hands and the ball went over, that was not a goal.
Over your so
Over
they
my
had to
hands.
change the rules.
We made our own rules. So as long as I was a goalkeeper,
Yes.
the balls that went above my hands were not goals. So everybody knew it. Francis couldn't get it. That's not a goal.
Wait, so where was the goal supposed to pass?
The balls were supposed to be below where I could get them. But of course, I could get most of the balls.
But that should mean they have
So
to go through.
they adjusted the rules just for me. So that was acceptance.
So that was in your favor.
Yes.
In other words, it was hard to score a goal with you.
Yes. So it was also in my team's favor because then the other team would have less goals. Yeah.
And
but
that
we loved
meant
it.
they always wanted just the goalkeeper.
Of course.
So if the ball passes under your armpits, that's a goal.
That's a goal for sure, yes.
It can only pass below your armpits.
Below or where I could reach it. If it goes way above my hands, that's not a goal.
Whoa. That's quite interesting.
So we loved soccer. I still love soccer, but I don't play it anymore. I'm an old man now. But,
No.
But
you're
I
not
used to as a
old.
kid and loved every bit of
You
it.
love the soccer. Okay. So that was P5.
Yes.
Did you maintain this same wheelchair up to secondary?
I actually had the same wheelchair. I got a second wheelchair when I was in S4, but it was more like a backup wheelchair.
Oh.
My everyday wheelchair was the one that I got in P4. And I actually used it until for most of my work life, I started work as a social worker in 2000. And so between 2000 and 2007, that wheelchair was still functioning. I just retired the wheelchair. I still have it.
Oh.
I have not given it away. I have it in my
That's
store.
your first wheelchair?
My first wheelchair. I still have it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go to work. Do you remember your first job?
Yes.
Did you ever find any kind of bad or negative energy at work? Did you ever go to some places and you felt rejected when you went to apply for jobs?
Not really. I didn't do much of applying for jobs. I stayed at one workplace from 2000 to 2006.
Oh.
And when I left that job, I started another one from 2006 to 2011. So it was like one job, and after that one, another. So in my first job, my dad already knew this organization where I applied to get a job. He was already working with them. They knew me as his son. And when I put in the application, they had already known I was using a wheelchair.
Okay.
I wasn't able to walk, but they mostly looked at my abilities of what I could deliver. I was a social worker, so I worked in the children's home as a family father. I had 28 children, orphans to take care of, in my family. So I was an uncle to those
Uncle
28.
Francis.
So that's when the Uncle Francis name started or came from. And so that was 2000 to 2006. And so I was the father there, but I also worked in the office as a child care administrator. So my job was to, in that children's home, budget and purchase all the basics that our children needed. So I wasn't looked down upon because I think they already knew who I was. And even when I moved from, that organization was called New Hope Uganda. I moved from New Hope Uganda to Gaba Community Church in 2006. I mainly came to join Gaba Community Church for the church to be my base for the wheelchair ministry. But because I had experience with children, my pastor, Pastor Peter, asked me to help. They had started a children's home, and they wanted to set up the administration and make it a strong department to take care of children. So he asked me to lead the home in 2006. So I was the homes manager for Africa Renewal Ministries from 2006 to 2011. So for those years, I was managing the children's home. And he also knew me. He never looked down upon me at all, and he just kept giving me more responsibilities to do under Africa Renewal Ministries.
Okay, the fact that you came from a humble background, your parents must have believed in you a lot.
Yes.
A lot. Were you able to access education all the way from nursery to university?
Yes, I got education, but I never had an opportunity to go to nursery. When we started, I started school in 1987, I think it was. And we never did nursery. We started from P1. So I was one of that generation after the war where there was no nursery school.
Okay.
You start from P1 and keep going. So I started from P1. And I went up to S6. Of course, we had a lot of struggles even finding schools. I did very well in my primary school.
You excelled.
I did. I was one of I think we were 3 who got first grades. I was one of them. Went to secondary, but it was hard to find secondary schools because most of them told us we don't take children in wheelchairs, or we don't take disabled children. So instead of going to the first-class schools, we just found a school that would accept me. And so I was in the same school, Luwero Secondary School, from S1 to S6. They would make every class that I went to accessible. They would put a slope or a ramp
for you,
for me. Even when I took on responsibilities in the school to be the lab technician or laboratory assistant or chairman of the science club, they would put then a ramp on the laboratory for me to access that. So they really bent backwards for me and made things accessible as we went along. And after S6, I've done several courses, most of them online. One in administration, management and administration from a college in the UK, disability studies, counseling or biblical counseling. Some I've done online and some have been taught here, but I never had the opportunity to go to a university and do a mainstream or typical course like many of you guys do. So I've done many certificates of different things online.
Wow.
Yeah.
You seem to be a very favored man.
God has been good, I must admit. Yeah.
Wow. Now, you've talked about school, work. Earlier, introduced yourself as a married man.
Yes.
Quite curious, how did you meet Mrs. Mugwanya?
How did I meet Mrs. Mugwanya? Mrs. Mugwanya comes from Canada.
Canada.
Yes. Because many of us studied in geography about Vancouver and British Columbia. She's from Vancouver, and we met here.
In Uganda?
In Uganda.
Okay.
She had come to visit children's home where I worked between 2000 and 2006, called New Hope, Uganda. She had friends there she came to visit. One of the friends that she used to go to school with was my prayer partner. His name was Chris.
Is he also
Chris
Ugandan?
is Canadian as well. So they used to go to school with Adrienne, my wife now, in Canada. So she came to visit them. Chris and his sister were working in this children's home. And so I got to meet her when she came to meet those friends of mine. And we just became acquaintances at that time. We didn't know that it would be, she would be my partner for life until that was in the year 2000 that I met her. I did not make a move until 2008.
8 years later?
Because I didn't know she was the one.
She was your friend.
She was, more like an acquaintance. I heard about her and I would check up on her once in a while through my friends, our mutual friends.
How is Adrienne?
Adrienne is
Such things.
Yeah. So she was fine, and she also kind of would check up on me when I sent information. How is Adrienne? How are things going with her? And I knew she was not seeing anyone. So I realized she had the qualities that I needed.
You know what? We need to go for a short break. I'm so curious, and I can't wait to hear more of this story.
That's right.
Let's go for a very short break. Then when we come back, we're going to hear more about Mr. Mugwanya's marriage, or how he met his wife, Mrs. Mugwanya Adrienne.
Yes.
Let's go for a break.
Siri tia mkono kwa bulungi nyingida wesengendo James Tata Kane falukumi ya Pogba Mane Salah Mbappe la Kazate kila bwa muziki nyingido bango gena juulira kila kukonkona kayimba ko kayimba akapia obukadde ani muyimbi ki yakoze ekivulu ngenda mukonyomeza nkunyumize ani go chata go kyasaze rwachi nsonga ki tubinyumyemuko kuchaliza abayimbi muyimbi ku muyimbi ndata muyimbi ku muyimbi gatunyumya mwembozi okubene simu obeko kyobuuza okubene simu osaba kayimba ko yagalo ngese sangendo kanonkagala kakokone bwe kunyumirwa ate nga tusanyuka ate nga bwoyiga lwaki nedda kale bwe sawa 11 paka sawa eja emu eyakawungezi nga nkusiibula nga kujjako engalo kusiibudde aye.
What have you been working for that God can reward you for? Sinning? Some people, they say, I will not talk. I have nothing to say. Whether you have something to say or you have nothing to say, every action that you do and every inaction that you do is going to be rewarded. Helping people will be rewarded. Not helping people will also be rewarded. Of course, some people will say, I don't think God has that capacity to punish everyone he has. Giving you a reward, giving you a small crown. When other people have crowns as big as this room, I don't know how God is going to fit them on their heads, but of course your head will be there, but then you have all this big crown on your head. And then another has a very small crown. They must put it on the inside tube of a pen and stick it into their head. Ask them, how big is your crown? How big? So far the things you've done. I ask them, what exactly have you done that God can reward for? Stubble are things that we do without commitment.
Hello and welcome to Church Unusual, the platform where we talk kingdom. We are looking at the Bible to understand principles of living as sons of God in the earth.
When God made man, Genesis 1,
Yes.
he made him male and female.
Male and
They are
female, made he
him.
them.
You see, he made him,
Yeah.
male and female, made he
Them.
So the him is also son, it's not male.
Yes.
All right? So it's a whole concept of how God operates. So we're not saying that, God is male and the Holy Spirit is female. There's no male spirit and female spirit.
Yes.
We are spirit. We have the prophetess.
Yes.
No. Otherwise, we'll have apostoless,
Teacher.
we'll have teacheress, we'll have pastoress.
Yes.
No, these are all spirit positions.
It's important to understand that Church Unusual, keep tracking.
The devil is here on the earth doing stuff. When you call Jesus, Jesus comes into the situation and overrides and says, let that one go. So whatever the enemy is holding, whether you can't give birth, someone bewitched you that you can't give birth, or someone is just tampering with your star, someone is frustrating you in any way, whenever you come to a place where God is, Jesus does what? Overrides. He said, no, this one is under me, don't touch. And the moment you begin to have Christ in you and you become a witness, the Bible says you become a witness of his resurrection. Why? Because resurrection is the thing that defeats Satan.
Welcome to the Sunrise Show. My name is Angel Walker. Erectile dysfunction is one of the causes of marital breakups. But do you know we have a solution right here?
On the Sunrise, learn how to utilize your small spaces at home.
Don't miss every weekday mornings, The Sunrise, right here on Promise TV.
Welcome back from that short break. Mr. Mugwanya was telling us about how he met his beautiful wife, Mrs. Mugwanya. And let's give him an opportunity to take us deeper so that we can learn something from him.
Yes. So, my wife came to visit her friends. Chris and April was their names.
Oh.
They went to school together. So the two were sister and brother.
Okay.
Chris and April was the girl. So when she came to visit them, they introduced her, my wife now, to me. And we didn't know that there would be any chemistry afterwards. I didn't know she was the one. I was looking elsewhere at the time.
In other words, you're in a relationship with someone else?
I was watching someone.
Oh.
I wasn't very sure yet. And I watched a couple of people after that, which didn't end up anywhere. And Adrian was always there. I checked up on her through the friends. And 2008, actually back up to 2007, her family, I had started the wheelchair ministry. Her family sent a small wheelchair. One of Adrian's brothers had a disability and uses a wheelchair.
Oh, really?
So he had outgrown one wheelchair that they sent over to me to give to someone. So I gave the wheelchair and I wrote back to them, sent them information about the new wheelchair recipient. They were happy, they celebrated, and so we kept in touch that way. So a year later, 2008, one of Adrian's sisters was going to get married. And so they did their introduction here in Uganda. She, Adrian's sister, was going to get married to a Ugandan guy.
Okay.
So they invited me to come, and I wasn't able to go to the introduction. I was busy at that time doing a bunch of things. I didn't get time to go to Jinja for the introduction. So I asked them to come to Kampala for coffee, you know, the things that we do.
Were they meeting you for the first time?
No. I had worked with Adrian's sister for about 2 years in that same children's home, New Hope, Uganda. And the man that she was getting married to, we had also worked together in the same children's home. So I knew them. And that's how they invited me to go to the introduction, which I wasn't able to go to. So they came to Kampala, came to Gaba Community Church. We met up, and I took them out. And I took them to KK Beach.
That one in Gaba.
In Gaba.
Yes.
So I took them out to KK Beach. And while we were having lunch, I asked the sister how she got to know Samuel, who she was getting married to, a little bit more. I knew them as friends. Now they were getting married. So how did they get to discuss all of that? And they said, well, we made a lot of phone calls and we Skyped. And I knew Adrian was not seeing anyone at the time. So I turned to her and I said, Adrian, I think we need to step up our emails and our phone calls and our Skype. We laughed about it. She didn't know I was serious.
Were you
I wasn't
serious?
Yes, I wasn't seeing anyone and she wasn't seeing anyone. She had the qualities that I wanted. And so I made that as my first move.
That was your first move.
Then a few months later, she didn't write or didn't do anything. So I wrote her an email and I said, we agreed to step up our emails. Why are you not saying anything? And she said, no, we didn't. You mentioned it. We laughed. But then I followed up and I said, I really want to get to know you with an intention of getting married. At that time, I was over 30 years, so I wasn't looking for penny pals. I was serious about marriage. So she asked me to talk to her parents. If they accept, we would get to know each other. So that's what we did. I talked to her parents. She talked to her parents too. They gave their permission, and they asked me for 5 references.
Like as if you're applying for a job?
Yes. So for them, it was serious because their daughter lived in Canada.
Yeah.
I lived here.
Yeah.
There are many people who get into relationships like that with their own intentions and they put on a face, but that's not really their character. So they wanted to know who I was. And so they asked, who do we talk to? So I gave them 5 references, one of them being a mutual friend, Chris, who they also knew.
Their son-in-law to be?
Basically, their friend's kind of son-in-law.
Okay.
Because he was the only Canadian who was closest to Adrian while they were here. So then our director of the children's home that I worked, his name is Jay Dangers. And then I had a manager there who was called Tom. He was an American, but he was a great friend of mine. So I gave him as a reference too. And then I gave one of my mentors, his name is Uncle Sam, Sam Serunkuma. He was one of my references. And then Pastor Peter. Kasiri of Gaba Community Church. So there were 5 references that I gave. And by the time they had inquired from the 3rd person, they had realized every one of them they talked to said the same thing. And so they gave their permission. And that was 2009. And so we began looking towards getting engaged. We never got time to do the dating that, the young people do.
Because you had worked together for a very long time?
We knew about each other for a long time. And we asked each other lots of questions on the phone and via email because of the distance. So we got to know what we wanted to know. We talked a lot on the phone. And we realized, okay, we liked each other. We had the qualities that each one was looking for. I was in children's ministry at the time, and I wanted someone who would love on the children that I was serving at the time. Someone who is interested in ministry, no matter where it is. Some people are interested in ministry, but ministry in the city.
Yeah, not up country.
Not up country. So for me, wherever God calls me, I go.
Wow.
And so I wanted someone interested in ministry in the jungles of this world. So she was interested in ministry. She loved children. I wanted someone who loves the Lord. She really loved the Lord. So those were the basics. And of course, every young man wants a beautiful woman. So she was beautiful. So that's how we got engaged in 2009. I think it was in September. Come January of 2010, we got married. So we've been married since 2010.
And you have children?
We have 3 children.
You have 3 children?
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful. How has this journey of maybe being disabled, how has it shaped your relationship with your children, especially when it comes to parenting?
Right.
Yes.
My children realized quite early that I couldn't walk. They also realized quite early that their mom was different from me, our colors. I remember, I think it was Hannah, her first time realizing that we kind of looked different was when she was about 2 or 2.5.
Yes.
But then she got the colors wrong. She's like, but daddy is purple and mommy is blue. Or something like that.
Okay.
So she mixed up the colors, but we could tell the gist of what she was saying.
Yes.
She was like, they're different. And then about walking, they realized quite early. As soon as they begin walking, they all realize, okay, daddy is not able to walk. And all of them have learned quickly either how to support me, how to help me, the things that daddy can do with them, and the things that daddy cannot do with them. But they've not really limited us in terms of parenting. They know, like, I still play goalie for my son when he wants to play football. I get into the goal as usual.
You get off
and
your
she
wheelchair?
shoots. I still sit in my wheelchair. And I still play goalie for him. He loves soccer as well. My girls have loved ballet, and all I need to do is be there. Or watch them.
You dance together?
No, they do dance for me. So all I need to do is watch them dance.
Is there a time when you get off your wheelchair and maybe use your hands and legs when you're home?
Yeah. We play a lot of wrestling with my children, especially my boy.
Arm wrestling?
Not really, rolling over and trying to get everybody fall down. So I get to play with my children. And also when we play family games, I'm not in my wheelchair. We all sit down.
You're as vulnerable as possible when you're home.
Very much so. Very much so. So they know the things we can do. When it comes to things like jumping ropes, they know that will be mommy's thing. When it comes to maybe riding bikes, they know that would be mommy doing it. Maybe teaching them how to swim. That would be mommy doing it.
How has it been for your wife, especially when it comes to such responsibilities, like
Right.
riding a bike? We know it's usually the father responsible. How has she taken in all these things?
Yeah, for them, it's not really teaching them, but having fun riding with them. The teaching we do together. This is what you do. This is what you do. But she gets to hold the bike. Yeah, but she's a very active lady.
Wow.
Even before, her family really depended on her and still depends on her to do so many things.
Wow.
So she's a very active lady. So it wasn't really hard. And she's the firstborn in their family. So she had gotten to do some of these things before with her own siblings.
Wow.
So it wasn't hard for her to do now with her own children. So we do several things together, but there are several responsibilities that they know. Mommy will do this, daddy will do that.
That's beautiful. How has your family helped you or supported you in Father's Heart?
We do this ministry together.
Okay.
They all come with me and our team to go into these different districts. We go to a different district of Uganda every month.
Every month?
Every
As
month.
a family?
As a family. And with our team, the Father's Heart Mobility Ministry team.
Do you do this during holiday? Because they have school.
They do homeschool. My wife is their main teacher. We have a supervising teacher from a school in Canada, but she's the main teacher, and I suppose that makes me the principal of the school.
In your house?
In my house. So she does most of the teaching.
Yes.
And so we do school sometimes on the road as we travel. And then also when we get to the mission field in that district, we can get time in between. So we never held back because of the trouble, but they do the ministry with me. So we travel to a district and stay there for 1 week.
Okay.
From Monday usually to Saturday. We do trainings for local pastors, and then we teach them how to assemble wheelchairs. And then we begin fitting people in wheelchairs with our own team, but with also the local pastors that we join hands with when we get to that district. So we've done this since Hannah was young, or since we got married. So Hannah was born into the ministry, and they all do it together.
Wow.
Our children right now can look at someone and say, that one is going to need this kind of wheelchair. Or that one had cerebral palsy when they were young. Or that one has polio. Or so because they've been at this for almost all their lives.
Wow.
So.
Let me ask. Okay, now, all this, the children know all this. You've given out so many wheelchairs.
Yes.
Do you remember your first wheelchair? The one that you gave out, the first wheelchair that you gave out?
Yes.
Do you remember it?
I do.
When was that?
I think that was back in 2002, when I gave my first wheelchair. It was an old man in our village back in Chiwoko. He lived alone. His family, most of them had died, but also the ones that were still alive had abandoned him in a little hut in the village. He was dirty. He was never bathing because he couldn't move.
He couldn't move himself.
He couldn't move himself. So his legs had gotten affected. I don't even remember what exactly had happened, whether it was diabetes or it was something else, but somehow his legs were not able to walk. So he had been in the house for over 10 years. And so we brought him this wheelchair, sat him on it. He was now able to come out of the little hut for the first time
After
in
10
10
years.
years. Yes. So that was the guy that we first gave a wheelchair on our village.
Is that one of the things that inspired you to start Father's Heart? To be like, this is the time?
Once I had committed to giving someone a wheelchair when I grow up,
Yes.
but the satisfaction that brings to you when you give someone a wheelchair, and the fulfillment to see that you have helped someone have hope and dream again about life, that keeps us going even today. It showed us it was important then, but even now, that hope that mobility brings to someone even keeps us going now.
Uncle Francis, so far, you've been in this for a very long time. Wakagaba bugali bumeka?
Okusooka twasooka ne tugaba obugaali nga 12 okuva mu 2000 paka 2007 oba 8. Kati 2008 lwe twatandika okuleeta obugaali obungi nga tumaze okukola enkolagana oba partnerships n'abantu abalala mu nsi z'ebweru. Waliwo mikwano gyaffe abamu be bayita Free Wheelchair Mission batandika okutuweereza obugaali obwo nga tubugula ne babutuweereza eno ne tutandika okubugaba. So okuva 2008 okutuuka kati bwe tubala eggaali ze twakagaba wonna awamu ziri 20,023 nga mu bisatu.
20,000?
23,000.
23,000?
Yes, 300 wheelchairs, yes.
Wow. Mu districts kameka? Kwango gambe you visit different districts?
Different districts.
Yes.
So, tugaba mu districts and other locations, naye locations ndowooza ze twakagabiramu obugaali ziri 128. Mu ezo bwe tuawulamu districts zokka ne tugamba nti kati districts ze tuba tubala ziri 122.
Zezo districts
ze twakatambulamu.
Naye bwe muba mugenda okugaba abantu bemuwa, how does someone qualify? Muba wabuwi or
nedda.
you do a piloting?
So okusooka districts zitukolera shortlist oba olukalala lw'abantu nti bano wetusuubira abeetaaga obugaali ne balutuweereza. Kati olwo lutuyamba oku-outsourcing obugaali nti baagala 2, so 2 tubirina. Kaakati bwe tumala okufuna 2 era baba baatuwandiikidde nti ono asobola okutuula, ono tasobola kutuula, kuba waliwo abamu abaliko obulemu naye nga omutuuza mu ntebe n'ayiikayiika n'agwa. Kati bw'aba tasobola kutuula, oyo entebe gy'akozesa ndala kweno ng'eyange gye ntuulamu nga nsobola okukola ki? Okwetengerera bulungi. So bwe tumala okufuna eggaali ze tusuubira nti zijja kukola, tuziteeka mu loole ne tugenda mu disitulikiti eyo. Abantu bwe batandika okujja, buli omu tumuscreeninga ku lulwe. Ono Francis, tuwandiika amannya, n'oyita omuntu, n'omutunuulira, n'olaba by'asobola okukola ne by'atasobola. W'asobola okuteeka ebigere ne w'atasobola. Engeri gy'asobola okutuula mu ntebe oba engeri gy'atasobola kutuula mu ntebe. Ne musalawo nti ono agenda kutwala eggaali type bw'eti. Ate sayizi, bwe muba mulina sayizi eyo ne mumufiitinga mu sayizi eyo. Bwe muba temugirina sayizi eyo ne mwadijasitinga gye mulina okusobola okufiitinga sayizi y'omuntu bw'aba ali. So kati bwe mumala omumufiitinga ne mumutereeza bulungi, usually tumukuba ekifaananyi ekigenda ne information gye tuba tumugjeeko, kuba tuba tulina okukola reports nti omuntu twamuwadde eggaali, twamuwadde type eno olw'ensonga gundi era ekifaananyi kye kino.
Naye mbana abantu b'emwakawa, is there any of them who has called you Nakuwa story naga Mwami Francis. This is what it is.
Yes.
A story that touched your heart. Any?
Banji.
Waliwo yomu.
Waliyo kampe stories nga 3. Waliwo omulenzi omu gwe twawa eggaali. In fact story ye twagiteeka ne ku website yaffe fathersheartmobility.org. Omulenzi ye Moses. Moses yali yeewalula wansi ng'ayavula. Ye nga bw'atambula. Kati yali ndowooza oba awezezza emyaka nga 18 we twamusinkanira. Tumala okumuwa eggaali yali yalekeraawo okusoma tasobola kutuukayo, talina kyakola. Kati weeyiganga. Bwe tumumala omuwa eggaali atandika okuloota nti kati naye ndowooza nsobola okusuubula kasooli. N'atandika okusuubula kasooli. Kasooli gwe yasuubula n'avaamu ssente n'atandika akaduuka. Bw'amala okutandika akaduuka n'awasa omukyala. Moses kati bali mu kuzaala baana. Balina 3 ndowooza kati. So Moses olaba nti obulamu buva ku kwewalula ne bukyuka n'atandika okuloota kikyasobola okukola. N'atandika okusuubula n'akola akaduuka n'awasa omukyala. Kati obulamu bwakyuka n'azaala abaana. Omulala omwami yali Kaliro oyo naye ku mulundi omulala yali yafuna accident n'amenyeko omugongo. Spine. Kakati we omugongo ogumala okukosebwa yali musomesa nga takyasomesa. Ng'amaze emyaka mingi yali omusomesa takyasobola genda ku ssomero. Bwe twamusanga ne tumuwa eggaali. Omwami oyo ndowooza ye George emba nzijukidde bulungi. So George bw'anaaba alabye pulogulaamu eno ajja kumanya yeeye. N'addamu okusomesa bwe yafuna eggaali. Yatubuulira era ku olwo nti nze ngenda kuddayo. Yasooka tubuulira nga tumuwa eggaali. Ngenda kuddayo nsomese. Kati ankubira essimu oluvannyuma nga nti kati natandise okusomesa nze deputy headmaster w'essomero.
Just like that.
So kati asomesa ye deputy olw'okuba nti yafuna eggaali. So omulala omulenzi twamusanga mabega eyo twali twatandikira awo 2009. Omulenzi yali Kibaale eri side z'e Kagadi. Kati yali agenda kukola bibuuzo bya senior 4. Eggaali gye yali ayina neefa. Ne batandika omuvuganga ku kagaali wheelchair yafa. Kati ne bamuvuga ku gaali bicycle okumutwala ku ssomero. Naye nga tajja kusobola oli yali amuvuga tajja kusobola muvuga paka lw'anaakola ebibuuzo. Nzijukira ku olwo twali tusigazza eggaali 2 nga tusigazza abantu 6 abafisse. Nga nina okulonda waani gwempa eggaali emu ku ezo 2 asinga okugyetaaga. Twalondawo eggaali emu ne tugiwa omulenzi eyali agenda okutuula ebibuuzo. Kyewuunyisa kati nti omulenzi bwe yamala okutuula ebibuuzo yagenda n'asoma okubeera laboratory technician. Kaakati y'omu ku ba laboratory technician ba Kagadi Referral Hospital kubanga yafuna eggaali n'atuula ebibuuzo n'asoma. So stories bwe zityo zituzzaamu amaanyi.
Uncle Francis, in a few minutes, waliwo eyo omuntu bambi nga maybe bamuzaala nga yali atambuddeko oba nga bamuzaala bw'ati. Oyinza muzzaamu maanyi ki? How can you inspire them?
Bintu bingi bye tuyinza okuzzaamu amaanyi abantu. Naye kansooke okubagamba nti okusookera ddala tulekeraawo okwenyooma. Bw'oba oli eyo lekeraawo okwenyooma. Manya nti buli kinoomu Katonda gwe yatonda yamutonda olw'ekigendererwa. Tewali muntu Katonda gwe yatonda nga talina mugaso. Buli gwe yatonda n'amuwa n'obuvunaanyizibwa bw'anaakola. Zuula kiki ky'osobola okukola nga ggwe. Osobola kukola ki? Nze ntera okugamba abantu nti nze nsobola kukola bintu 2 era bye neesibako. Nsobola okusiba obugaali, so nsiba obugaali ne mbuwa abantu. ekyokubiri njogera era buli gye ŋŋenda n'enjogera n'abantu ne mbazzaamu amaanyi era buli anoonyeza bibiri bugaali oba kwogera kati era ndi wano ndi mu kwogera so kakati gwe osobola kukola ky'owooluganda mukama kye yakulekera nze omumwa gukola n'emikono gikola gye nkozesa gwe ki ekikyo ku mubiri gwekikola kozesa ekyo okikole bulungi bakunoonyeza ekyo kijja kuyamba n'okulekeraawo okwenyooma nti nze ndi mulema kale sisobola kutambula wani yagamba nti okwogera ebigambo ng'okozesa omumwa ogenda kwetaaga magulu so ekyo ky'osobola okukola ky'oba okola n'omutima gwo gwonna katonda ajja kikuweeramu omukisa ate ajja kwewuunyisa nga basobola okukunoonya olw'ekyo so buli omu azuule papasi y'obulamu bwe era ekyo mukama kye yakutondera okukola okikole bw'onookikola ojja kuyamba abalala naawe okweyamba naye ate on'okubeera omukisa eri abantu ab'enjawulo so teweenyooma
mu ddakiika emu oba bbiri mbadde nsaba otubuulire omuntu nga yandyagadde okuyamba Father's Heart oba okufuna kyawaayo oba ogisapootinga akola atya abasangawa
tulina website osobola okututuukirira ku website yaffe fathersheartmobility.org oba osobola okujja kugaba community church yenna gw'osanga n'obuuza Uncle Francis oba osobola otukubira essimu essimu yange eri 0772 ne bw'obanga totunoonyeza kutuwa buyambi naye ng'otunoonya nga wandyagadde okufuna eggaali noga nze simanyi wakujja ggaali ffe tuzigaba kasita obeera nga okwolifayinga oba osaanidde okufuna eggaali era naawe tunoonye ku website yaffe kuliko foomu ku fathersheartmobility.org kuliko foomu y'okujjuza okufuna akagaali era kuliko n'essimu era osobola otukubira okufuna akagaali oba osobola okujja kugaba community church n'otugamba nti bannange neetaaga akagaali nze gundi ne gundi era bajja kuwa foomu ogijjuze tukunoonye tukuwe eggaali
ate obugaali buno bwa bwereere
obugaali bwa bwereere
buliko emyaka nti oba kuva ku myaka 3
nedda omuntu yenna eyandyetaaza eggaali gwe jangu gye tuli tujja kukola assessment tunoonye eggaali ki gye weetaaga na size ki gye weetaaga
muli ku any other social media apart from the website? Are you on Instagram?
Ku Instagram kwe tuli naye tetutera kucekingayo era Fathers Heart Mobility gye tuli ne ku Facebook waliwo ne page endala ya Facebook eya katabo ke twawandiika akalimu story yange tukayita a wheelchair for Francis.
A wheelchair for Francis.
Yes, era osobola ogisanga ku Facebook. A wheelchair for Francis era akatabo ako katundibwa okusingira ddala ku Aristotle. Bakatunda naye n'abasobola okukagula ku mutimbagano kali ku Amazon. Basobola okukajja ku Amazon. Oba bw'ojja ku church yaffe Gaba era osobola okutusaba nti naye njagala gula katabo era nako osobola okukafuna. Naye ne ku page eyo naye osobola otuwandiikira a wheelchair for Francis era message tujja gifuna.
A quick one. Auntie Susan yakuwa akagaali akyaliyo?
Akyaliyo.
Akulabye?
Yes. In fact, we tried to launching a wheelchair for Francis back in 2019. She was one of our guests.
Your main guest?
Yeah, our main guest. So kujja okulaba story eno yali part of waweetuuse. So she was one of our guests. We have some pictures with her as well.
Wow. Now, Uncle Francis has shared a very beautiful story. I want you to appreciate your partners and also a word to those that are watching us. Yes.
We would want to appreciate all of our partners. We have Free Wheelchair Mission, we have Johnny and Friends, and we have various churches, Mariners, New Song Bible Church, all those churches that have worked with us over the years to bring mobility to those who need it the most. Thank you very much for blessing God's people and making it possible for us to bring mobility to our people. And to all those out there, I would want to encourage you. Can you share what you have? Maybe whatever you have in your home, there's someone else out there who may not have it, who needs it the most. Can you share with your neighbor, with someone in need that you get to see? No one can say, I am not in ministry and therefore I cannot do anything. We are all in ministry. What can you do to bless another person? Maybe to bring them up to where you are, or help them step from one level to another. Because God has made it possible for you. You can also enable another one to also be blessed and do something in the kingdom.
Wow. Thank you so much, Uncle Francis. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming to Elevated. We've been blessed by your presence. Well, this is Elevated every Thursday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We shall be on your screen bringing different inspiring stories. So whenever you're watching Elevated, don't touch the dial. See you next Thursday. Hope you keep the time. Bye.